It's a special time in our service where I get to invite Melissa up to share her message, to share her light and all that she is. And I'm so grateful to know her. I feel like I've known her for a while, even though it's only been a few minutes. Melissa Heisler. Oh, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. I am honored to be here and share a little bit of my story of how I went from being a stressed out type A workaholic, doing her life, and started to actually live my life. Ever since I can remember, I was a doer. I was the daughter of a farmer and a Catholic woman who was taught to give and give and give until it hurt. And so I remember I started working, I think when I was 10 years old. I would go to work with my father. I was not being paid. It was not a family business. I have no idea why I was there, but I spent my summers filing and answering phones at a public works to help out my father and work and do. And that continued. So I got into high school, I would have a job, I did theater, did school, every moment of the day was taken care of, which continued into college, where I'd have 2 jobs and theater and honors classes, and again doing and doing and doing, which led into my career, where again I was doing and doing and doing in my professional life, traveling around the country, meeting deadlines in marketing. You know, I always had the theater, the show must go on mentality. I was that stage manager who was managing everyone and everything around me. And it wasn't just the doing of the work, it was also the doing for others. You know, my sister was born, she's 13 years younger than I am, so I was a teenage mom. She wasn't mine, but I was a mom. And I helped nurse a friend through AIDS, and it just seemed to be every time there was someone in need or something to be done, I was the person to do it, which is why this is all about Mary Patrice today. And I started to realize what the toll it was taking on me, how there was a disconnect from actually living. And one of the times that really stood out for me was I had just gotten married, and this was, I think, 6 months later. I got a call, and my husband told me my father-in-law passed. And he asked me to come to the house, and I said, okay. So I finished my emails and went to my snail mail box and talked to a couple coworkers and did a couple other things. And then I received another call, and he's like, are you coming? I'm like, yeah, I'm just leaving now. And I get there, and they had kept the body there. I haven't shared this before, but they had kept my father-in-law there, waiting for me, and finishing 2 emails was more important than being there for my family. So obviously I had a problem. The stress and leading an inauthentic life really had started to get to me. And I'd noticed things like that, but then it was like, well, it's my responsibility to take care of work. How can I let this go? And I didn't know how to let it go. And so my body helped me. I started having physical issues. I had major digestive problems. I had inflammation. I apologize to the guys, but I had reproductive issues where I'd have flows for weeks and not days. And it was horrendous. I had major pain in my body. And I started to go to doctor after doctor, thinking I had cancer, thinking I had some severe disease. And they throw a prescription at me, thinking, you know, maybe this would help with your symptoms, and send me on my way, and they never did. And so then I go to another doctor and another doctor and another doctor, and it was the same routine of pills and nothing working and no diagnosis. And finally, I circled back to my OB, and he looked at the sheet of 4 years' worth of medical history and looked it over and then looked me in the eyes and said, well, let's give you a hysterectomy. Maybe that will help. And I said, maybe? You know, he didn't even think it would help. He kind of gave up, and he wanted to take body parts out. So then I kind of said, no, thank you. and started to explore the alternatives, the acupuncture, nutrition, Reiki, everything I could get my hands on to try to relieve this pain, which was really debilitating. And I would find some relief during a session, but it wouldn't last. And it was the same thing where these, they would tell me my chi was too high, but they wouldn't tell me why my chi was too high. So there was the cause of it wasn't found. And there was one day I was receiving a massage because of my back pain. And again, I was a very straight-laced corporate person at this time. And my massage therapist would tell me about her trips to Peru to work with the shaman. And it was really interesting to lay there and get a massage and hear these crazy stories about Peru, but it wasn't my thing. And this one particular day, she was telling me a story of how this shaman cured a man of cancer. And I said, if he can do that for that man, he's got to do something for me. So the next thing I know, I'm flying 3,000 miles to go to Peru and to work with this shaman. And I'm not here to teach you that shamanism is the way to be healed. It was an amazing journey, and it was something that I did receive a healing while I was there. But that's not my story. So I had been sick for all these years. I had amazing 10 days of working with plant medicine and having cleansing and having mental cleansing, and I felt 20 years younger when I left the place in Peru. And I flew back, and we landed in Miami, and I got my bags, and I went through customs, and I raced to my gate, and all the symptoms started coming back. And I said, you know what? It might have taken 10 days and 2 shaman to heal me, but I am so much more powerful than that. I made it all come back within moments. And that really led me on my journey to figure out how could I feel that good again, but how could I do it right here and right now? And so I want to share a couple things that I learned with you today. One of them is redefining what life really is. And we'll get into that. The second is growing the awareness of how our choices affect how we experience life and how we experience our health. And finally, it's really accepting and utilizing our power. So redefining life. Again, my life before was projects and deadlines and accomplishments. And that seemed to be what life was all about, getting things done. But when I actually looked at it, I never was present during the doing because I was always focused on the outcome or worried about the outcome. I never celebrated when anything was finished because I was jumping into the next task. There was really no reward for that life, and all it did was separate me from the things that really did matter, from the self-care, from my family, from, having a life. I was telling Mary Patrice earlier, when I lived in California after college for a few years, and it was the first time that I had only one job, I wasn't in school, and I wasn't doing theater. And I woke up one Saturday morning and went, what do people do? Every moment of my day used to be scheduled. And so when I started to redefine my life, I started to see what it meant to really live. What did it mean to exist? What did it mean to experience life? And so it's really important to look at what do you really value? What's important to you? And is it what you're giving a priority to? It's really interesting. I'm part of a Washington Post time hack program right now. And one of the individuals I'm to coach wants to learn how to become a millionaire by the time he's 40 so he can retire. And what's really interesting is we haven't started working together because he's too busy to schedule a session. So all I can see is this person who wants to retire and be with his family, spending the next 20 years of his life working 80 hours a week away from his family. So really look at it. What is it that you value? What do you want to experience? And make sure that that's your priority. And I love that word experience versus get. You know, a lot of times we'll look at, hey, I want a red shiny car, or I want to move to this place, or I want this thing. And it's really not the thing that you want, it's the experience of having or using that thing. So when you look and you say, I want a red shiny car, do you really want that, or do you want a feeling of exhilaration? And can you get the feeling of exhilaration in another way? So you can then release the outcome of having this specific car and instead focus on what do you want to experience, and is it what you're experiencing in this moment? So I'll also look what I'm stressed about things. Is it really what I value that I'm worried about? I've been going through this in spades right now. Again, we were talking earlier. I'm actually right now selling everything I own, renting out my house, and moving to Mexico. And oh, by the way, my mother had a major surgery in the midst of all that. So there's a lot of stressors coming up. And I'll get caught up in something, a deadline, when we have to let the renter in or something else. And that stress bug goes. All of a sudden the cloudy thinking happens, and I get all worried about that deadline. But then I look and go, you know what? The important thing is that I'm moving to paradise. Why am I focusing on this one little hiccup? Why am I not enjoying this time with my husband, this exciting time of transition? Why am I caught up in this confusion? So it's really catching yourself when you're not focusing on those things that you really want to experience, how you want to be, and what you value. And along with redefining life, for me, it was about stop being in that movie Fast and the Furious. Going through the day 24 hours or 24 miles an hour and speeding through it and speeding from one thing to the next thing, worrying about what happened yesterday, fearing what's going to happen tomorrow, but never being in the moment. And part of redefining life is actually living life in this moment. This exact moment is the only thing we know is real. What happened 2 seconds ago, we're all going to have a different perception of. What's going to happen 2 seconds from now, none of us can predict. So life is all about this very moment. And I just want to throw in here, too, about living is also managing technology. Right now, they're saying that 50% of the U.S. population is experiencing type A behaviors. And I think a lot of it is due to technology, because we're Pavlov's dog. Our phone goes off, let's look at it. Our emails come up, and we're automatically responding to our phones. We're being ruled by the technology versus us ruling the technology. So when you can catch yourself not using the tool, but having the tool use you, that's the time to stop and say, am I really living, or am I responding to life? So redefine what it is that you want during your day. And sometimes it's great to stop and say, if this was the last 5 minutes of my life, is this what I want to be experiencing? And sometimes when you're caught in that stress or that worry, that's the thing that can bring you back to center, that can bring you back to home. So along with redefining life, it's about growing your awareness of how your choices affect how you experience that life. I had a story a couple years ago, I guess it's quite a few years ago now, but I was going to have Thanksgiving at my house. I'm okay with the cooking. I hate cleaning my house, so I was not very excited about having people over. I was upset that my aunt and my cousin weren't going to come because it was too far for them to drive, and I wouldn't get to see them on their trip in. And it was just going to be a horrible day because there's only going to be a handful of us, and I was just in a really negative mood. And I stopped and went, you know what? My father's ill. My mother-in-law's ill. This is a time for us to have a quiet Thanksgiving together and just talk together and be together. And just that reframe of seeing how my thoughts were actually creating a negative day and how just as quickly changing my expectations and changing my perceptions could make it a more positive day. So grow your awareness of what those thoughts that you have, what are your beliefs, what are the actions you're taking, and how are they affecting your life? If we go back to the story of my illness, I thought something was happening to me. I thought I had a tumor. I thought I had some strange disease. I thought something was doing it to me. When I got back from Peru, I kind of became a detective of myself. And I learned that caffeine was causing symptoms A, B, and C. Gluten was causing symptoms C, D, and F. And the way that I was living, I could see how my choices were starting to affect my physical health. And with stress, when we are stressed, and we all get stressed, and it's okay to be stressed, but in our modern society, we don't stop being stressed. And normally, if an animal gets stressed because a tiger is coming after him, digestive, reproductive, immune system turns off, all the energy goes to the muscles, the animal gets away, and then if you've ever seen ducks fight, afterwards they'll like flutter their wings. They're resetting, they're getting out of the stress mode. All the normal daily systems turn back on, and they go about their day. We humans wake up and we feel we're already late. We get the kids off to school, we worry about traffic, we worry about the meeting that's coming up, we worry about our 401k, and it's stressor after stressor after stressor after stressor. So what happens is we don't turn off that stress. And that's exactly what happened to me, is my immune system and all the other systems were turned off for years, which were causing those symptoms for me. But it took awareness to really see what I was doing and how it was affecting my body. So it's really important to listen to your body and then give it what it needs. Again, recovering type A here, when my body needs rest, I go, you know what though, I should push through and just do this one more thing. This person needs a hand, I should go help them. And then I become more exhausted and I mess things up and I'm cranky. Where if I would have taken a 15-minute nap, given my body what it needs, it's amazing how everything else kind of works out itself. So it's important to listen to your body and not judge what it needs. There is no logic to what it needs sometimes, but you've got to know what it is that you need. And you've got to have the guts to actually become aware of it, sit with it, and learn from it. There was a great study done recently where they put a test subject in a room, and they hooked up those diodes or whatever they are, and they had the guy press the button. When he pressed the button, he received a shock. And the subject was told, sit in the room. You don't have to do anything. Just sit in the room. People could not sit alone with themselves for 15 minutes. There was one man in the study that shocked himself 100 times in those 15 minutes because he could not stand being by himself. So have the courage to be with yourself, to listen to yourself, to hear the stories that it's telling you. You have the answers, but you've got to listen and have the courage to hear them. And also, again, be an anthropologist as you're going through your day. See how it is that you are creating your day. Just like my story of Thanksgiving, my expectation for the original Thanksgiving was pretty poor. I was not very excited about it. Think about yourself when you're standing around the water cooler. What is the story you're creating about your day? And is it the story that you want to experience? Or is there another way you can rewrite that story? So have the courage to grow your awareness of how your choices and thoughts and beliefs are really creating your day, and make those choices of what it is that you really want to bring into your life. And then the final piece I wanted to share with you is accepting and utilizing your power. When I was in Peru, I think it was about halfway through, I went to this amazing site called Pisac. It's actually, I think, 10 times larger than Machu Picchu. It was just an amazing site. And we were up in one area, and there were these 5 stones. They're about this high. It was almost like headstones, but they didn't have any marking. For whatever reason, I went there, and I started to sway. It was cool, and then it got scary, So I ran over to the shaman. I'm like, what are those rocks? What are they doing? What's it all about? And as he's a very calm man, he looked at me and went, what do you think? And I was pissed. I'm like, I paid how much money? I flew all this way, and you're going to ask me what I think? I came here for answers from you. But that was the whole thing, was that I never stopped and asked myself. I never thought that I had the answers. I never thought of myself as an expert. I never really looked at what it was I was experiencing and going, what does this mean to me? And so it's really important for you to see that you have the power. You know, there were so many changes that I made in my health just by being aware and accepting responsibility for what I was experiencing, the health I was experiencing. I think it's the Marianne Williamson quote, which I'm sure you guys say here all the time. It's not the darkness, it's our lightness and our power that we're actually more afraid of accepting. And I think it is kind of scary to accept our power and accept who we are and what we can really accomplish. But I challenge you to do it. I had an experience with two individuals who really showed it strongly of what their power to create their life was. Both could have a story of victimization. You know, we look at circumstances we're in, and we could say, yeah, we're a victim of this, we're powerless. So this couple, the gentleman was diagnosed with an incurable cancer. It was a very painful cancer. He was given a certain amount of years to live. There was really nothing they could do for him. During the same time, his wife went in for a routine checkup. They found a lump, they removed it, no chemo, no follow-up, no nothing, problem solved. The wife spent the next 6 months, what if I have cancer? Who's going to take care of my husband? What's going to go on? You know, I'm a victim of this disease. Where the husband, who truly was in a situation that he couldn't affect, that he couldn't change, accepted where he was, accepted that this was the journey he was on, and was present with everyone during his last years. And so whenever you're in a situation where you feel like you're a victim of circumstances, a victim of others, really look and see what is it within your power that you can actually change. Sometimes it's big changes that you can make. You know, you can get yourself out of an abusive relationship. But sometimes you can't change those situations. Nelson Mandela could not get out of prison. But there's a great story of him where he was in solitary, and the guards were told to be extremely abusive to him. And he made the choice of, if I give up my humanity, I can no longer live. And so he was nice to these guards who were so rough with him. And the result was every couple weeks or actually every couple months they had to replace guards because the guards couldn't be mean to him anymore. So he was able to adjust his situation just by reframing how he was thinking of things. And we all have that power if we have the courage to take responsibility for our life. And I wish all of you wonderful lives, lives you experience, lives you love, lives you take control of. Thank you.